This is the Grand Reserve from Rocky Patel, and you are on Bespoke Unit. My name is Reinhard. Welcome, and let's light it up for another cigar review. By producing one top-rated cigar blend after the other in the span of 3 decades, Rocky Patel has been one of the most successful, one of the most accomplished and hardest working gentlemen of the cigar industry. The Grand Reserve was originally launched internationally at a spectacular event high up in the Austrian Alps called Mountain on Fire. As a sensory expert and experience designer, I was very fortunate to be part of that event. And it's not solely because I get to smoke one of the very first of these cigars together with Rocky at 3,000 meters above sea level that I am particularly fond of this stick, but I've been smoking them ever since, and not one of them failed to impress and perform exceptionally well. As a matter of fact, the Rocky Patel Grand Reserve features a unique blend created by Rocky to cater specifically to the European palate and the European market. However, Rocky is not disclosing the exact blend of those cigars, other than to say that the tobaccos have been aged for a minimum of 2 years before being rolled into cigars at the Esteli factory of Tavicusa, and then aged for another 2 years after the rolling. The Rocky Patel Grand Reserve is being offered in 3 different sizes. There's a 5.5 by 50 Robusto, a 6 by 52 Toro, which I'm smoking today, and a 6 by 60 as the mightiest offering of the entire line. Each of the sizes comes in a 10 count box with the individual cigars priced between 9 and 11 euros, depending on the size and the place of where you buy them. So in July 2020, the cigar finally arrived on the American shores as well, after tremendous success in the international markets. The cigar was very highly rated at a 94 by Cigar Journal's Tasting Panel, and it also received the Cigar of the Year award in 2018. There's plenty of expectation that the cigar has to live up to, so let's get right to it. In terms of look and feel, the cigar is pristine. The mahogany colored wrapper has minimal veins, a glossy, oily, and really inviting, invigorating external look to it. The roll is super even with just a few little soft spots every now and then, but the cigar feels perfectly constructed, and it also confirms that impression with the smoking experience, which we'll get to in a second. The aromas off of the wrapper and the foot remind me of some toasted graham crackers. I get a little bit of a funky, wet wood sensation and a bitter, sweet raisin component to it. The Prelight and cold draw reveals a little bit of a bitter chocolate nuance, some burnt caramel with a sprinkle of raspberry and dried raspberry powder. The draw from the very beginning is ideal, and it's a very rich and complex sensation already in the Prelight. All of my cigars are stored in my cooladors with 69% Boveda packs and meticulously tracked with a Boveda butler. I also have an original box from the launch event together with Rocky Patel with the signature on here, but we'll get to the specifics of the box in a moment. So let's start with the smoking impressions and with the aromas and flavors from beginning to end. The first third starts with bitter cocoa. Some of that bitter chocolate notes that we had in the cold draw already. There's more espresso and a little bit of a toffee note, some lingering bitterness, burnt nuts, pepper spice. I get a little clove in the back of the palate, and then a more luscious, a more creamy, a more velvety sensation. Right out of the get-go, it's a complex and intriguing smoke. There's plenty of subtlety, plenty of elegance, but with a lot of depth with nuances, new sensations, new aromas and flavors that you get with every single puff. So the second third reveals some apricot jam. I get a little sour cherry, some bitter components again, the chocolatey note that we already had. There's some tea leaf on top of that with a mineral salty kick in the very back. And then some sweetness to round it all off. From forest honey, I get a creamy evolution that reminds me of crema catalana and a little bit of like the burnt sugar on top of creme brulee, which makes for a very interesting and charming transition to the final and third of the cigar with a bright, elegant, yet full-bodied sensation. This is sort of the underlying theme of the cigar. As it is originally designed for the European market and a global audience, it is more on the medium plus side when it comes to Rocky Patel cigars. It's not overpowering, it's not super strong in terms of nicotine, but it has a lot of depth and some of the traditional Nicaraguan spice, salty black pepper with a little bit of the bitterness that keeps your palate engaged. But it's perfectly and very elegantly manufactured into a mellow, sweet and succulent smoking experience. The mouthfeel quite smooth with just a bit of that bitter kick in the very end and a sprinkle of pepper on top. A touch of a dry tea leaf and the astringent sensation will keep you coming back for another puff and keep your saliva going. The stimulation overall superbly balanced with a quite beautifully developed life cycle overall. As a matter of fact, the finish of course is lingering and the residual scent in the room reminds me a little bit of dry wood, pink peppercorns and also some charred oak. The draw of the cigar, as with the Prelight draw, is ideal, and it was ideal with every single cigar that I smoked. Now the burn line, because the wrapper is quite thick and oily, is a very thick one, and every now and then I had to take care of the burn with a few little touch-ups, but nothing that will worry me all too much. The ash backbone is a little flaky and it's sort of a dark ash, but it doesn't do any harm to the smoking experience whatsoever. It all looks very well made, quite pristine. It's a prominent cigar ring, and the box, of course, we already spoke about that. This one has a particular meaning to me because it's from the original event and it has Rocky Patel's signature right on there, but it also fits the overall theme of the Grand Reserve perfectly well and makes for an artistic, beautifully elegant and well-designed overall experience. Now, as you all know, our pairing recommendations here at Bespoke Unit are not part of the evaluation and the score of the cigar, but they make for a very important part of the entire review process. Of course, we're using the Bespoke Unit Cigar Formula, which is a quantifiable review matrix that you can also use for your cigars. As always, you can find a blank copy of the Cigar Formula as well as this particular one that I used for Rocky Patel's Grand Reserve. You can download them or you will find the links underneath the video. So back to the pairings. Food-wise, I would definitely see a Saka Tort sitting beautifully next to this Rocky Patel. First of all, the cigar was originally intended for the European market. It was globally launched in Austria, so the Sacher cake just seems like an obvious choice. And when you think about the chocolate, when you think about the apricot jam that I was talking about before, some of that sour cherry, like the combination of bitter chocolate, mellowness, sweetness, with just a little bit of an acidic and spicy nuance to it, that makes for a wonderful gourmet pairing. On the other end of the scale, I tried some salted peanuts with the cigar, which also make for an excellent pairing because the saltiness supports some of the minerality, some of the spice, and the oiliness from the nuts will always bring out some more of the luscious aromas and flavors. And as you all know, fat is a flavor enhancing component so it will elevate the overall smoking experience. A final suggestion that I have for you in terms of food and snack pairings will be Turkish Delight. The honey and the nuts from the Turkish Delight will support this beautiful smoke and give you a more mellow and more nuanced sensation. My beverage of choice with this cigar would be a very classic, straightforward espresso. No sugar, no milk, just plain, simple shot of espresso. Apricot juice is also a perfect combination. Since you do not have an extra element of bitterness as you would have with the espresso, the apricot juice will give you a more luscious and a more velvety sensation. If you fancy an alcoholic beverage and spirits in particular, my choice would be a well-aged grappa from Italy. I also tried the classical cognac, whiskey or rum pairings, but I find the grappa just offers another layer that you wouldn't find with some of the other choices. Reminding ourselves that a single cigar will set you back somewhere between 9 and 11 euros, depending on the size and the location of purchase. This is quite an affordable and perfect value for money cigar. It looks ornate, it looks glamorous and flashy. Nevertheless, it is a cigar that you could smoke on many different occasions. Of course, it won't do any harm to smoke it with Rocky Patel at a beautiful event up in the Alps in Austria. But when you sit in a traditional, old school European cafe on the outside terrace, smoking that with your cup of espresso, that's just a beautiful choice and a perfect occasion for the cigar. If you fancy a late evening smoke, you won't be disappointed by the Grand Reserve either. But even as an afternoon smoke or for a lunch break, this is a perfect choice because the overall aroma and flavor profile is not overpowering, very mellow, superbly balanced and harmonious. So any time of the day will do justice to this beautiful smoke. Even though I'd love to know the different tobaccos that were used for the blend of the Grand Reserve, I also enjoy and appreciate the mystique that goes around this particular line. So go on a treasure hunt of aromas and flavors, not get distracted by some technical details, but look out for all these beautiful and luscious, interesting aromas and flavors that the Grand Reserve will reveal. It's a beautiful smoke that will not disappoint you no matter the occasion. As of 2020, you can now also get the cigar in the United States. Grab a box whilst you're at it and let us know what you think. And with that, I'll leave it to you and I'll see you next time for another review here at Bespoke Unit. Light 'em up and goodbye.